Kravitz. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Hello and welcome to episode 350 of Picks and Ponies right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I am your proud host, Howard Kravitz. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on a very special three-part episode show. We are going to be dealing with the wonderful stake races in New York. It is Peter Pan Stakes Day. They've got 4 great stakes in New York this Saturday. Following that, my good friend Matt Miller has just written a book, and I am so excited to tell you all about it. But I don't have to tell you about it. He's going to tell you about it. Matt Miller will be here live. And then to follow up on the Miller theme, Jim Miller, no relation, director of Hawthorne Racecourse, will be here to talk about the fantastic and difficult late pick 4 sequence this Saturday at Hawthorne Racecourse, Chicago's hometown track. You can follow me on X right there at HKravitz. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right hand side of the screen, and also smash that like button below the video player. All that helps the YouTube algorithm send people to this channel. And then in the upper right hand corner of YouTube, hit that notification bell so that you know when new content will arise. Not only can you follow us on X right there, but scrolling at the bottom of the screen is my email, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Fantastic Power Picks. We cannot thank everyone enough. The Power Picks tip sheet has exploded. It's always given you great picks. It continues to do so. We did that over the weekend for Derby weekend with price plays, spot plays, long shots, best bets, pick fives, you name it. Look below the video player. It's profitable. It's inexpensive. I know good friend Matt Miller will tout the pick sheet, the picks, Power Picks when he comes on later as well, as he's a proud subscriber. Also, we've got a great website, hhhracingpodcast.com. Check that out, please. And we're also on Instagram, instagram.com/HHH Racing Podcast. We have a ton of people in the live chat. If you are watching right now on X, thank you. You may want to switch over to YouTube so you can get involved with the live chat, like Jeremy Scott, who says, good evening, all. Penn State Scott, yes, I agree with that. It is Miller time. It's Miller time times 2, Penn State Scott. Mike Monroe giving us some information. Yes, Tuscan Gold is out, as is Lonesome Boy. We'll be talking about the Peter Pan. I see Mark Bogaz is here. A lot of fantastic people is here. TC Markham, yes, 350 is a lot of episodes, TC. We've had over 500, actually, but that's just Picks and Ponies, 350. We've had over 500 episodes on our various shows. We're very proud of all that. And finally, of course, Tom Espinoza is here. Good evening, everyone. One guest tonight is an author. We are clawing out of degenerate level. Absolutely. That is for sure. Tom, thank you very much for joining us. And Jeff Amster says, Matt, it's a great book to read with a bowl of popcorn, apparently, Matt Miller. So, yes, we would agree with that. Let me bring on my wonderful co-host from the Saratoga Special and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Mr. Paul Halloran. Paul, how you doing this evening? Oh, boy. Here we go. Muted. That's the start we like from Paul.
A lot of people try to mute me, Howard.
I hear you.
How are you? I'm doing fine. I'm doing great. I at 7:46 read the last words of Mr. Miller's book, so I'd be fully prepared for the show.
I have to say, I sort of came back down to reality this week. I've been a little down in the dumps this week. I'm not going to lie. Just sort of, people are asking me, "Oh, how'd the Derby go?"
Oh
great.
yeah.
Hey,
how many times? Yeah. Howard,
I was telling Matt, Paul, it's very hard to explain to a non-horse racing person the gravity of the situation, and it never goes well. But they're like, "Oh, great try." I'm like, I want to give him a particular finger that's not a pinky finger, but anyway.
Howard, I got to tell you one last funny story you'll love. So I go to work. I go to work Monday morning. Of course, Sunday is fallout day, exhausted, mentally drained, the whole deal. So I go into the office Monday, And as soon as I get in, who shows up at my desk but Frankie? Frankie is the guy who works at the newspaper downstairs. He's kind of like a jack of all trades, pot custodian, pot greeter, just the best guy in the world. His title is actually assistant to the publisher because the publisher says he's the most valuable guy in. So anyway, they run one of those, blind draw derby pools. So last week he said to me, "Do you want to get in the derby pool?" I said, "Oh, yeah, sure. What, $5, $10?" He goes, "Nah," he goes, I can only get them to go for $1. I said, "You're kidding." So I gave him like $6 and I said, "Do me a favor, pay for some other people." He shows up at my desk Monday morning with an envelope. "You had Mystic Dan." And so after the 7,500 went up in smoke in Louisville, in Lynn, Massachusetts, Monday morning, I was handed an envelope with a $20 bill in it.
Wow.
And I immediately gave it back to him. I said, "Frankie, please go out and buy yourself lunch, breakfast, whatever you want. I cannot take this money." Imagine that, though.
I had a story, not exactly the same, but the same genre. I had a good friend at school whose wife decided to bet the derby. She said, "Honey," to my friend, she said, "Honey, just put 2 across on this Mystic Dan." I sort of like the name Dan.
Great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, anyway, let's just move on. Paul, we're gonna be pretty quick tonight. Now, here's what we're gonna do, everyone. This is gonna be a little bit of a different kind of show. First of all, as I mentioned on Monday, Pete Visco's got some family obligations this week, so he's not gonna be on tonight. Paul, we're gonna talk about Aqueduct, or actually, what is it? Belmont. What are they calling it? Belmont at Aqueduct, whatever they're calling it.
Belmont at the Big A, yes.
Belmont at the Big A, yes. Okay, didn't mean to be disrespectful. They have 4 stake races. Some of them are smaller fields. I think that's why it's outside of the late pick 5. We're just going to cover the 4 stake races on the show. We're going to spend about half an hour. I'll let you have your rant, Paul, and then we're going to bring on Matt Miller, and then we're going to bring on Jim Miller. And of course, you're welcome to stay on as long as you'd like. So let's just get right to it, Paul. It's a big day this Saturday at Belmont at the Big A, as it always is the week after the Derby, because it is Peter Pan Stakes Day. The Peter Pan is always sort of a fun race. I enjoy it. It's usually one turn, as you know, because it's at Aqueduct and not Belmont. It's 2 turns. It's still 1.125 miles. It is a small field. There were some scratches. I'm sure you know about that. We'll get into that. But so we're going to cover races 2, 4, 6, and 7. And for those of you that subscribe to our Power Picks, the sequence for the Power Picks, the main sequence, is actually going to be the middle pick 5, which is a mandatory pick 5 that does cover 2 of those races, actually 3 of those races. So anyway, if you subscribe to the Power Picks tip sheet, you're going to get a middle pick 5, which covers 3 of those 4 stakes, and the Gulfstream late pick 5 with the 2 big stakes for horses that will qualify for Royal Ascot, which is a place I am very happy to go to in just over a month. I cannot believe it comes up that quick. All right, Paul, let's get to it right now. Let me show the picks on the bottom of the screen. The first race we're going to talk about is race 2. Again, we're covering the 4 stake races at Aqueduct this weekend. This is race 2. It's the Bogey. It's a grade 3, 104 Eastern, 175,000 is the purse. 1.16 miles for the older fillies and mares. It's a small field because of those 8 horses. The bottom 3 are main track onlys. And what I understand, Paul, the weather's actually pretty good out east, and it's going to be fine on Saturday. So really, we're talking about a field of 5 with 2 chads. And let me refresh here so we get the morning lines up on the screen for everyone. That should be coming up any second now. And here they come. Wow, White Beam is even money. And Esprit, the other Chad, is 7-5. I'm going 4-5-3. You are going 5-4-2. So we're both going with one of the Chads, albeit a different one. What do you like about White Beam on Saturday, Paul?
Well, I just thought that, class-wise, she kind of towered. Not towered. Doesn't tower over the 4 because the 4 does have a solid grade 2 win. But that Diana. She beats In Italian and Fevrova, who I think we saw last weekend. The First Lady, that race was loaded. You just look at that Gina Romantica, In Italian, Evie Jets who I actually liked Saturday. That was one of my many bad picks. And then shipped her to California and didn't run well out there. Got caught up in a little bit of a speed duel, but just didn't have anything left. Chad off the layoff, 5-horse field. Irad gets to see everything going on inside of him. I think he's going to deal with the other one, Pratt, but I just thought White Beam, based on what she's done. The only triple digit buyer that we can see on the page. I just think she stands out a little bit.
Yeah, she's definitely the most accomplished. This race reminds me, Paul, of the $1 Million Turf Race last Saturday, where you had I'm Very Busy, who was the supposed better, more established, higher buyer horse against Program Trading, right? And Program Trading won, who was the more lightly raced horse off the layoff. This race smells to me of the same thing, Paul. Asprey is definitely slower, based on last year, but she's only a 4-year-old. She's going to improve. I did not get a chance to see the workouts. It looks like on April 27th, perhaps at Payson, they were working together, but Payson workouts are very hard to find visually. I think it's one of these two. I'm just going with the slightly higher priced one. I would be a bit surprised if one of these horses lost. There are some decent ones in there. I mean, I've got Spirit and Glory for Falcone, who won nicely last time, although it was a soft lead and etc. You've got the two Nisi Marie, who's sort of a cool Pennsylvania bred for Robert Reed, who I know you know pretty well as a trainer, who ran some decent races. But Paul, it just feels like one of the Chaz is going to win this race.
You would think. I mean, only 3 other horses. Yeah, I just think I see why this race isn't in any big horizontal sequence.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a few emails saying, like, why did, Naira screwed up? This should be in the late pick 5. I actually disagree. I actually want to compliment the racing secretaries. You don't want small fields in the late pick 5. That's their biggest bet of the day. I totally get it. We can talk about why it's small fields, but I'd rather not even get into that conversation. It is what it is. There was a big weekend last weekend called Derby Weekend, and there are a lot of horses running in that race. There's only so many horses in the country that are going to run in stake races. So that's the way it goes. Let's go on to race 4. Race 4 is the start of the mandatory middle pick 5. And this is the start of the sequence that we are going to have on our Power Picks tip sheet, Paul. So this is the opening leg of the mandatory 50-cent pick 5 that will be featured on the Power Picks tip sheet. And you can see I'm going 162. Paul's going 142. There's a horse in this race, Paul, that was really impressive last year, has been off quite a bit of a layoff, and we'll see where this horse, we'll see what this horse is made of. This is the Run Happy, a horse that we both have seen at Claiborne in Paris, Kentucky. It's a grade 3. Of course, it's a sprint, 6 furlongs on the dirt, 175,000. Field of 6, and the big Moorline favorite is the number 1, Straight No Chaser. If you're not familiar with that, a trainer, I think it's Jesus Landeros, is the assistant to, oh boy, host fail. Help me out, Paul.
Okay, it's Juan Landeros, who is the assistant to Dan Blacker, also known as husband of Christina Blacker. Dan Blacker was suspended because there's a rule where you have to file a vet report before a horse has a timed workout. Right. And unfortunately, he had a lot of instances, like more than 500, where the vet reports just weren't filed. It's really a paperwork suspension, but it's a 3-month suspension, and that's why you see Juan Landeros. When I went to Formulator, I said, geez, only 0 for 1, 180 to 365 days. He has started limited horses in his names, but this is a Dan Blacker horse. Dan is out until I think he's out till the latter part of May.
Correct. I think it's May 30th. It's the date. But anyway, this is a My Racehorse horse. He's going to get bet anyway. He was really good last year. I actually bet him at Pimlico. I remember almost a year ago, and I mean, wow, was he impressive? Long layoff, has been working well. From what I understand, they've been sort of pointing to this spot also, Paul. And I think they found a really good field here, because not only is he lone speed, this field is a little bit meh to me. But your thoughts? You have Straight No Chaser on top, so do I.
Yeah, I was, Howard, I was gonna, I was trying to beat him because that's we're kind of wired that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, even with the layoff, um, 107, 10. I did try to beat him in that race last year, and he was really, really good, and he was.
Was.
He was, he wasn't awful in the 2022 Malibu.
No.
Running with the likes of Taba and Hoist the Gold and Forbidden Kingdom. As I say, if this horse gets beat, you just assume that it's the layoff. But look at the bullet work on April 27th, 5 furlongs and 59-1. You know that shipping isn't a problem because they shipped the horse to Maryland last year. The horse, it looks like they're shipping him right on top of the race, which I'm not, if I had my druthers, that wouldn't be my pick, but
I agree.
that's really splitting hairs, isn't it?
It is. Jeff Amster makes a good point. I was not aware. Apparently, the Fox show is ending at 4 o'clock, and that's why they're going early. So they got to deal with TV there. I agree. I wish he had to work on the East Coast. I wish he was there a little bit earlier, but I'm not sure it's going to matter. I showed the pace projector, Paul. He figures to be loose on the lead. We'll see. I just want to throw a horse out there that I think might upset the field. Wow, 9-5. That's the first time I'm seeing it. That's crazy. Okay. Joy Freshwater 9-5 for Linda Rice, who has one big number, and it was the last one. Maybe this horse is just getting better. Got a dream trip though, but I think he's going to get another dream trip. Lightly raced 4-year-old. I mean, I would never take 9-5 in a zillion years, but that's my second choice. You've got the 4, who I looked at carefully also. 90% Maddie, 8-1. Paul, you get a little action there. How about 1-4 exacta? Cold Punch could pay, maybe 6-1.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? This is one of those cases where I usually always bet horses that I write about, and I've written about this horse a few times in his Parks races. Um, this is a pretty good horse. I mean, this is a cutback. This horse, they were thinking about the Preakness last year because they ran in the prep, the Federico Tessio, in which he only got beat by a head. So, then they cut him back at Parks, ran fourth in a total slop fest. And, first, second, and second at Aqueduct in listed races. It's a hard trying horse. I mean, it's going to take a lot to beat horses like the 1 and potentially the 6. But, yeah, I think you get the right idea, Howard. I think I'm just going to hit 1-4 here and move on.
Well, I remember last year he was mainly a speed horse, 90% Matty, and now he's learned to rate a little bit and finish sprinting. So I do like that. I don't know if he really classes up, but he's definitely a good horse to use underneath in the exacta. Let's go to race 6. This is the what I would consider the feature race of the day, even though it's the grade 3. It's for 3-year-olds, and it's the prep to the Belmont, although the next race after that is a grade 2. It's the Man of War. I just sort of feel like the Peter Pan's going to get a little more attention. Whether it should or not, I guess, is a whole other question. But let me go ahead and take the banners down. As I'm getting the right banner, Paul, do you want to talk about 2 horses that are out? I'm assuming you've heard about this, and tell the viewers that there are 2 horses that are going to be in the PPs that are not running Saturday in the Peter Pan.
Yeah, so Lonesome Boy is going to run at Monmouth on Saturday.
Correct.
The 4 will be scratched. And I was not aware of the 5 until I got on the air tonight. But I'm going to tell you what, that makes the Preakness, that's a pretty interesting move. Chad was not happy with the ride that Tyler gave this horse in the Louisiana Derby, and he said so after. This is an aggressive move. I think, frankly, no one's, and hats off to Mystic Dan for doing what he did, but no one is going to not run in the Preakness because Mystic Dan is there. They'd be more likely not to run because of Muth, right? So I'm going to take a long look at this horse for the Preakness. We're not talking about the Preakness, but I find it very interesting that Chad scratches here and goes to the Preakness.
We'll talk about it next week, Paul, but I did not see the article. What was Chad upset with the ride of the 3?
Oh boy, yeah, I wish I hadn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
Yeah,
I watched the replay again because I didn't know that he was going to be out until, I think they
it's
didn't announce it until yesterday, I believe. So,
and I hope
uh,
I'm thinking of the right horse in the right race. It's just something kind of embedded in my tiny
that's
little
okay.
brain.
Hey,
But
Paul, do you want to change your picks? Because right now you are 5-3-1 on the screen.
well, I'm going to go with that guy, the wine steward, of course.
Okay.
317.
317. Okay. Let's change it. Well, let's talk about the wine steward.
Boy,
Anyway, there's the field. It's $200,000. Again, it's for 3-year-olds. It looks like a field of 8. It's only a field of 6. There's been talk, why run in this race when you can run in the Preakness, and how much worse is, how much better is the field in Preakness, blah, blah, blah. I get it. We'll talk about Tuscan Golden next week. I think he's got a big shot in the Preakness. I'll tell you, I'm a fan of that horse, and we'll talk about that more next week. But he's not in the race, so it's going to be a 6-horse field. Here's our picks again on the screen. I'm going 6-3-7. Paul's going 3-1-7. Let me get the correct spacing here on the screen. Let's start at the wine steward, Paul. The wine steward, that name might be a little bit of a sour name for Mr. Matt Miller, because Matt, I know, really liked the wine steward quite a bit last time at Keeneland in the Grade 1 Gamble contest. I liked a horse called Encino. I was fortunate enough to be correct in that situation. Certainly Matt's been more correct than I have in many other situations, but that time I was correct with Encino. The wine steward has run very well several times, Paul. I've got him second. You've got him first. Let me bring up his PPs. Why do you like him on Saturday in the Peter Pan?
well, first of all, good luck finding. Not only can't you find a bad race, you can't even find a mediocre race. That was a good race last time. Encino, I was right with you. I was pretty cold in this race. Encino into the wine steward. We didn't expect Encino to get to that lead and kind of have it all his own way in the front. And this guy did make a run at him. Lost by less than a length. Was in a battle in the Breeders' Futurity, got beat by Locked, who was looking like one of the Derby Logicals at that point. So I just think the main reason I like this horse, this horse is a tough customer. You're going to see him take a run at Encino, and right about there, it looks like he's by. And credit to Encino for holding him off, but he just keeps coming. He doesn't. He's even going to come just a little bit. He's less than a length, just about a length. So, I just think this horse is going to be in the thick of it at all times. And, had him second, and my top choice is Scratch. So now I have him first.
Paul, any distance concerns? I'm not basing it off of that race, but now it's been 2 starts in a row. Granted, he's losing to real nice horses. He's bred to go longer. Although to honor and serve on the dam side is a more of a miler type.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm nitpicking. I'm not 100% sure he wants to go longer than mile on the 16th. I guess we'll find out on Saturday.
Yeah, that's fair. Although I just think he's the type of horse, and again, he may not win, but I just think the type of the horse, I think he likes to fight. And as long as he's in contact, he's going to, I think, go as long as he has to go.
And the good thing about fans of the wine steward is he figures to get a real nice trip, because you see the pace projector. The 4 is not in this race, ladies and gentlemen, and neither is the 5. So again, the 4 and the 5 are out. So in theory, the number 6 is going to have the lead. I don't think the wine steward is going to be this far back, Paul. I love time for him, but I just don't think that's the case. Protective is going to be closing a bit. Unique Insight, I think, for Chad is going almost for sure. I think the wine steward just sits either off that horse or in the pocket off of my top choice, Antiquarian. Paul, I don't know if you remember or saw the Louisiana Derby replay, but Antiquarian was very fractious in the gate and actually broke through the gate pre-race. Bumped his head a little bit on the gate, nothing dramatic, but he did act up pre-race. He broke through the gate. They had to reload him. He ran okay. He was a little bit rank. He just wasn't quite himself, and despite that, only 4 lengths off of catching freedom. I thought he ran pretty well. He's been working well. It's Johnny V. He's going to sit a great trip. We're not getting 6-1 because of the scratches. We might get, I don't know, 7-2. I like Antiquarian in this spot. I think he's interesting. I think he's going to improve, Paul. I think maybe a mile and 3/16 was a bit too far. So I'm going with the Pletcher here. Antiquarian, a bit of a price. I do like the Wine Steward. Quickly on deterministic, Paul. I don't know what to make of him. I'm a big fan of this horse in Clement. He was actually a future Derby backup horse for me that obviously didn't pan out because he didn't run the Derby. He's pretty talented. I think we're going to find out what he's really made of today because he threw in a bit of a clunker in the wood.
I agree with you, Howard. It's really is certainly the decision not to try the Derby we think was the right one, right?
Yes.
So, do you just throw the wood out, or was the Gotham the one that is? Right. It's tough. Can I go back to your question earlier, Howard?
Please.
Chad Brown after Louisiana Derby. I thought he was the best horse in the race. He didn't get a good trip at all. I wasn't happy about it. He should have tucked him in the first turn. He was the only horse near the front who finished. He ran great. I expected him to run big.
And he's riding him in the Preakness next week, don't you?
Tyler?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well,
apparently he's not too upset with Tyler on the ride with.
Well, I mean, look he's going to put. If he thinks he has the best chance with Tyler, he's. But anyway, sure. So deterministic, I think, is a very tough call in this race. Certainly, his 93 in the wood puts him squarely in the mix. That obviously was accomplished at Aqueduct. It also was accomplished in the slop. So did the slop move him up? Real head scratcher with him.
I'll end our discussion of this race with one very quick question, quick answer. Does the winner of the Peter Pan go to the Belmont?
Well, if it's deterministic, yes. If it's antiquarian, yes. The Wine Steward, I guess it depends how he wins, because to your point about distance concerns, although he doesn't have to go 1.5 miles this year.
No, he doesn't. Let's talk about the last race of our sequence tonight. Again, we're only talking about the stake races today at Aqueduct, or tonight at Aqueduct for Saturday. The Man of War, nice race, grade 2 on the turf. $400,000 is the purse. It is a nice field of 9. There's 2 Charles Applebys. There are 2 Christophe Clements. There are 2 Naipaul Cheddarpauls as well. $400,000. They're going 1 mile and 3/8, Paul. This is a 3-turn race. I got to prep for the Manhattan, basically, right? I shouldn't say prep. It's a big race unto itself. That Man of War, I hear, was a pretty decent horse. But anyway, this is, I guess you could say, a prep for the Manhattan. We're thinking the same way here, Paul. I'm going 9-2-1. You're going 9-4-2. We both have the 9 Nations Pride on top and the 2 Cortez for Clement at 5-1 in the mix. Nations Pride, Irish bred, Dettori, Appleby, 8-5 morning line. I am a big fan of this horse, Paul, and I think he is going to be a lone A for me in this sequence. Your thoughts on Nation's Pride?
Well, my first thought is, hats off to Charlie Appleby, because just look at this horse's PPs. Maidan, Great Britain, Saratoga, Aqueduct, Keeneland, Maidan, Germany, just for good measure. Just wanted to be over there to watch them set up for Oktoberfest. Germany, Canada, to add another country to the list. Bahrain, and now back to New York. So, You know what? We need more. And I get it. He gets a lot of great horses, but we need more people like Charlie Appleby, who not only isn't afraid to run his horses, he's not afraid to put them on a plane and say, you go there. I think this is a cool.
What was the name of that German race, by the way? You want to take a shot at that one, Mr. Smith?
Yes, the GPBS, GPBZ. Yeah, that's what they call it over there.
Dang it! I was hoping we'd. All right, anyway, go.
So anyway, and again, is Now Buick's not coming. I think there's a big card Saturday. Is it at Chester? Maybe
I believe
there's
it
big
is,
races
actually.
over there Saturday, so I wouldn't get too tied up in that. You get the Tory. I will say this, Howard. Both of Charlie's horses who ran second as favorites last Saturday were very hot and washy in that race, and it. Well, you were there, right? It wasn't Saturday was not, it was warm, right? But no, didn't seem to be a factor with anyone else.
No, I mean
Um,
it got a little warm in the afternoon, but nothing
yeah.
crazy. No.
So I don't know. But the thing about this horse, Howard, this horse has already worked 3 times
Yes.
at Belmont, the training track at Belmont, which
Yeah.
is the only place you can work at Belmont these
Right.
days. Uh, Already worked 3 times in a week. Um, his best races is 104. I do say it's a good race though, Howard. I think
Yeah.
it's a very
Well,
good race. It's kind of you listed all the trainers to have a turf graded stakes on turf and no Chad in the race is kind of different. But I think it's a good race. But I think Frankie gets a good trip from out there. And my play in the race was maybe to try to beat the other Appleby, as well as Silver Knot ran at Keeneland. Did get a great trip, and I thought there were a couple of other horses in here who are really good board type horses, and those are the 2, 4, and 5.
shout out to Noah Maher, co-host of Bet and Boozin', who really liked Silver Knot last time, and he did upset the field. I will say Frankie gave an absolutely awful ride on his mount in that race, but Silver Knot, if he can run back to his 99, Paul, he's got a shot. I just don't see that happening necessarily because I think there's other speed in the race, and I just, he just got a dream trip. But I suppose Silver Knot can be used. I'm going to try to get him out of the money. I'm interested in Cortez, Paul. And Cortez, you've got third. I've got second. This was one of my plays of the day on Florida Derby Day, and it was an extremely slow pace. And Cortez was able to run them down,
Yep.
including Tawnyport, who is the other Clement, who's in this race also. We're just going to get right to the end here. They were crawling. Here's Cortez right here. Tawnyport's right in front of him. Cortez is the 2. And it was a really slow pace. He's able to angle out. This might not look that visually impressive, but they were really walking. You could see he was a little bit goofy. This was his first start in the United States, and Harry Hood ran a big race, and public sector, what used to be a nice horse for Chad, and he ran him down. And I just like this effort, first time in North America, and I see no reason why Cortez cannot be better today than he was last time. The distance suits. I think there's more speed in this race. And again, the Clements are not going to bring this horse to the United States for nothing. I mean, there's obviously intel here, and there's purpose. And this is, Dub is an owner, so it's a private purchase, obviously. And Rosario, nothing wrong with that. This horse wants to run all day. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I think Cortez would be my sort of fuzzy underneath at 5-1. Any thoughts on Cortez or anything else in this race, Paul? You've got
Yeah,
the
I
4
agree with you,
starting.
Howard. I had down as a tough trip, and mainly for the reasons you detailed. He didn't really get in a lot of trouble, but 138 and change for the mile. He wasn't that far off the lead in that replay you showed, but he had 6 horses in front of him.
Yeah.
so it was a good move, certainly a good move by Rosario getting him out. But yeah, I thought Harry Hood is a very what are the odds on Harry Hood? I don't have the
I
morning
think I saw
lines here.
15, Paul.
Harry Hood is a definite reverse tri-key potential
15
for
to
me
1
in this
on the
race.
4.
I thought Harry Hood ran very well in that race, and could have very well won it if Cortez did not get there. And Tawnyport, since going to the turf, pretty much shows up almost every time. And there's another horse that's potential for the board, though won't be near the price of Harry Hood.
Noah Maher, fool me twice. Shame on us. We'll see about the 8 horse there. I just want to throw also Ohana Honor for West Point is the 1 at 6-1. Did get a loose, easy lead last time at Keeneland, but did it really well. And Shug's horses, as you know, Paul, improve with age and experience. I wouldn't completely sleep on Ohana Honor, the number 1 at 6-1 in third. It's gonna be a fun sequence. Again, there's smaller fields in the stake races, but there's some good ones, and we'll probably see some Belmont stake horses coming out of the Peter Pan. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is about that time. And Paul, again, welcome. You're welcome to stay on as much of the show as you'd like. This is a moment that I've been waiting for a while, and our next guest has been waiting for even longer. And this is really exciting for everyone here. And personally, I couldn't be happier. Paul, I know you know our next guest obviously very well, and is a I want to say co-author, but as a journalist, I know you can appreciate how difficult it is to write a book, as you are in the process of
I'm
doing
losing.
that.
I'm losing 1-0 as of last week.
Not a contest, man. You're going to be tying it up relatively soon. I want to bring on a gentleman right now who is a great friend of mine, who we reacquainted a few years ago. I'll let Matt tell the story if he chooses to go that route. But we are just so excited to have on a first-time author who has written one hell of a book that everyone at home should look into buying for sure. And that is our good friend, Matt Miller. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing terrific. I got to stand up right away.
Nice.
It's a cool feeling when your family's behind you and you wake up to a T-shirt of your own book cover. So that's kind of nice.
It is absolutely awesome. Matt Miller is here to promote his book. It's called A Better Way of Thinking. You can see on the bottom of the screen right now, and I will actually don't need to read it off for you listeners because I just said the address, but to look into his new book and to purchase it, you go to one word, a better, BETTOR, double entendre there, a better way of thinking.com. Again, the better is BETTOR, a better way of thinking.com. There's a QR code that we'll show here in just a minute, Matt, but we got a bunch of questions for you, and I'd love to invite everyone in the chat to ask questions of Matt Miller as he talks about it. And you know, Matt, let me go ahead and show right now the banner here. So here's the banner, everyone. I'm going to leave this on the screen just for a few seconds. If anyone wants to grab their phone, if you like right now, or your iPad or anything that has a camera, because there is a QR code on the screen right now, and that will take you to a better way of thinking.com. Master the odds with a better way of thinking. It is available. Matt will talk about other ways that you can purchase the book. Really cool Matrix style cover, Matt. I'm sure you're really excited about how the way it turned out. So, Matt, let's just jump right to you, man. Let's get to some questions here, and you can tell everyone about it. So, first of all, the obvious question: why did you write the book?
All right. So, and I know I was prepped for question one, but I want to get to something before that.
Sure.
It's a $50 book, and I get it. That's a lot. This is a book that I can darn near promise will pay for itself. You're going to think I'm kidding when I say, if it doesn't, come find me and I'll give you your money back. I am that confident that if you apply what's going on in this book, this will pay for itself. Don't freak out about the $50. It's online on my website. I am told, my education in this whole literary process, I'm told you get to keep more of the money when you have your own website and self-publish. So at least for a while, that's what I'm doing. Eventually, this will go on Amazon. It is being converted to an ebook as we speak. So it'll be coming out in that format, and I'll re-promote it at that point. And I'm actually going to do an audio version. Pete Fornatel's coming to town. He's going to voice a couple of the characters in the book. And we'll get that recorded, I think, at the end of the month, and that'll eventually be out as well. So, okay, now I'll get to your question.
Jim Pilar's got a question on the bottom, Matt. How many more books do I need to purchase to get one of those shirts?
Yeah, you have to really negotiate with my kids. I don't even know that I'm capable of doing this kind of thing. So I was delighted to find it. And looking at the other question, I thought I saw, I am recording the audiobook. So it will be in my voice. Apparently there's all sorts of rules around decibel levels and being allowed to go off script. So I'm going to have to be a little bit more formal than normal, but I'll try and keep it fun. So I wrote this book. really looking within myself, I wrote this book for about 500 people. That's the first group I wrote it for. People in my life that I'd like to get me a little better. I am constantly being told, you're doing that wrong. That's not how you're supposed to do it. You're not supposed to say that. I think results in various aspects of life would suggest that I'm doing okay. And yet it's a constant criticism of my methods and the way I think about things. So this was my chance to the 500 people in my circle. Obviously, you two are in that. Looking into the camera, there's a lot of this podcast audience that I feel is a part of that circle. I want you to get me a little better. Beyond that, I wrote this book, I would say, for the kind of horse player that I was 5+ years ago. I could have really, really used this. This is not a handicapping book. It's not a book about picking. It's not even really a book about formulating your opinions. It's a book about understanding your opinions and understanding what you're looking to do with those opinions. So I try to pick up, honestly, at the hard part, where how much should I bet? What should I bet? I do ask, a lot of that's up to you, obviously, in terms of your own priorities. And there's a whole discussion in the book about focus and what you're trying to get out of each day or each week or however you think about things. But again, trying very hard to get horse players to avoid a lot of the mistakes that I paid for being a very average player for many years. And I've just got good self-awareness around when things turned around for me and why.
No, it's excellent point. And Paul, I have the benefit of hearing Matt's, getting into his brain often when we do have contests and whatnot. But it's not just about contests, and that sort of goes on to the next question I have for you, Matt. Is most people know you for, if they're aware of in the horse racing world, you won the BCBC in 21, but you've actually been involved in many other winning BCBCs that you talk about in the book that people may not be aware of. You've won gobs of money through the BCBC. So you are most known for tournament success, but is this book primarily about tournament advice?
I would say it's the tournaments that certainly give me the most credentials and the most credibility. But no, this is definitely not a book just about tournament advice. This is really about thinking from a risk-reward perspective as applied to life, as applied to sports betting, as applied to horse betting. And clearly, in the world of horse betting, I have found somewhat of a trick or somewhat of a method with respect to tournaments. And yes, I do get deep into tournaments. I get deep into explaining the details of those that I've been involved with. And I'm pretty blunt and transparent about this is how I do it. There's a somewhat of a joke. It's not really a joke, but there's a paragraph or two asking, why would you tell everybody how to do this? If I'm being honest, the way I do these things, it's still pretty hard. And so I'm just not that scared of arming the rest of the world with the knowledge. I'll also admit that a lot of the bet data is public. And so I think it's just a matter of time at some point before the rest of the world catches up anyway. But at least for now, it's been a terrific ride. We get into the details of 3 different BCBCs with 2 other members of the crew. And it's a lot of fun. It's a good read.
Paul, I'd be remiss not to, of course, allow you to ask a question or two. I don't know if you have anything prepared, but you've read the book, Paul. Any quick questions for Matt?
Do I appear to be the unprepared type in the
Not at
time
all.
that we've done this venture? Mr. Miller, did you think I would be unprepared for this?
I'm scared to death.
I was not suggesting that, Mr. Halloran. I just didn't know if you had questions ready.
I know that was a rhetorical question, one in which you already know the answer. Yeah, I have many, but the first one I'll ask, I'm asking for 2 reasons because it'll apply to me down the line. Matt, how it ended up versus what you thought, how it would end up going into the process.
Boy, that's coming from you. That's a tough question because I know how wildly different your answer to that question is going to be Mine, keep in mind, I had a career as a corporate attorney. That gave me an awful lot of advantages when it came to starting a project like this, and that included an awful lot of planning. And so I'll confess, I wrote 3 pages that got thrown in the garbage. I wasted 2 days on the wrong computer in the wrong room doing it the wrong way. And I would say after that, this was wildly smooth sailing. It was just, I can't say enough about planning, about outlining what you want to say. And you all will feel this when you read it, but these are stories that were just bursting out of me. So it's not like this required some kind of massive talent or research to come up with how to say this. I talk about this crap to anybody that'll listen anytime.
Matt, you remind me of a funny story, which we're not going to tell right now, about a library incident while you're writing this book. But anyway,
Yes.
Scott said in the chat, I read Billy Walters' book, and we'll do the same with yours, Matt. And TC Markham, shout out to corporate attorneys. Wow. Okay, you don't get a lot of shout out to corporate attorneys too often. Matt, I got a little surprise for you.
Okay.
So I got home today, and look what came in the mail. Bam! There it is. And I started reading the book. And I want to read an excerpt, shall I? And this is on page 55, everyone. And it says, I've met many great people in my life, but I've also met some real bullshit artists. And the biggest one is Howard Kravitz of the Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. I must have misread that. My bad. No, Matt, seriously, you said some nice things about myself and the HHH Racing podcast in the book. I cannot wait, my friend, for you to sign this. I'm so excited. It literally came at about 4:30 this afternoon, just coincidentally in time for our show. So there it is.
Yeah, and I gotta say, the cover, Casey Dasco at Oak and Air did an unbelievable job in a conversation of capturing the essence of what I told her this book was about. So I've had the pleasure of working with some great people, some of whom your audience knows. Frank Scattoni was a line editor and a copy editor. Pete Fornatail was my editor. And boy, for those of you that have a view of him from delivering the content that he provides on YouTube and in the Money podcasts and whatnot, the level of talent as a journalist, frankly, I'd say very similar to Paul, where you can only show so much in the context of a podcast, but there is so much underneath, and I was so impressed getting to benefit from that. So it's been a very cool team.
Again, we have some people that are just joining in OPVA. I will put it on the screen again. You can buy the book at abetterwayofthinking.com. I'll go ahead and bring up the banner one more time for everyone, and there is a QR code here. There it is. Let me take the banner off the screen so it's not in the way. It's actually not in the way, but the comments. Sorry, hold on a second. There we go. There it is. abetterwayofthinking.com. There is the QR code. Grab your phone right now, anything with a camera, and it'll send you right to there, and you can order it online. It is not going to be on Amazon anytime soon, if at all. As Matt explained, Amazon takes a fortune of the percent, and it's just not worth it. And Matt decided smartly to go to a different route. I will say also, Matt, there's a question, and then I'll get to my next question, from Mark Bogaz, Chicagoan. Book signing at Hawthorne? ?
In a heartbeat. The humility may seem fake. I assure you it's completely genuine. The thought of someone wanting me to do that is so crazy to me, and yet it's a real honor. And yeah, I'd absolutely love it. So we can absolutely work that out. Thanks.
Matt, I think, and Paul, I think we know someone that's going to be on the show pretty soon that might be able to assist.
2 seconds.
With
Cousin Jim.
Cousin Jim, that's right. Matt, next question, then Paul, you can ask the question after that. So, Matt, you've written this book. It's a great book. We cannot say enough good things about it. It's not just about gambling, it's about life. By the way, the tagline I love: how risk and reward have shaped my view of gambling, life, and movie theater popcorn. And there's hilarious stories about movie theater popcorn in there as well. But Matt, ideally, where do things go from here for you in terms of promoting the book, and then also maybe a second book, or is this something you think you might want to continue to write? Just your future in general with this book.
So I'll take the direct future first. I don't really know. I've never done anything like this. I definitely would like to promote the book fully. I'm sure I'll be on Pete's podcast next week. Everyone I've spoken with has been super generous about saying, come on my show, come on my podcast. This was obviously first, Howard, but I'm gonna hit Horse Racing Nation relatively hard. I don't think it's going to be that hard to get. It's a small ecosystem, so I think I'll do okay with reach there. I've gone to a publicist and said, look, as much as I'd like to think this is a book that works, equal parts life lessons and gambling and horse racing lessons, I need somebody else to tell me that it works that way. I do think it works. And long term, I could see being a public speaker, doing sales rallies, doing some sort of corporate events, team building, whatever. I would absolutely love to do that kind of thing. So frankly, if there's anybody in the audience listening saying, I'd like to take a chance on a relatively cheap speaker that's going to make it fun for at least you, I'm available.
Yeah, but make sure you take care of Matt. He still has a daughter that's in college, so you got to take care of that. Paul, one more question for Matt, and then we'll wrap it up with a final question that I have for him.
Okay. I we'll get into at least one specific, Matt, because I think it's important, and this is on the betting side. You talk a lot about your philosophy and tournament philosophy and cash play to supplement tournament philosophy, which I think will be very valuable to people because, as you point out, people tend to spend the money to enter these tournaments and then kind of say, okay, there's my money for the day, and kind of forget everything else that's going on. And, sooner or later you're playing a horse on the side, Matt, and you forget to playing him in the tournament. But anyway, my point, though, is it's as much a statement, but I want you to expand on it, is that, this philosophy that you espouse, you're doing that at a certain level with a certain level of play, but it doesn't really matter. It's relatable to anyone to do whatever their budget might be. So where you might have $1,000 cash double, someone else might have a $10 cash double, but the ratio, the ratio of win stays the same.
That is absolutely right. And it makes me absolutely nuts. If I have any complaints at all about my group of friends, is when they start comparing dollars instead of percentages. This is not a competition. There are people with a lot more money than me, betting a lot more money than me, being a lot more successful than me. There's always someone bigger. None of that matters. Focus on yourself, focus on your own goals, whatever multiple of your bankroll you're looking for. If you're integrating tournament play with cash play, set your goal on the day. It doesn't matter if the guy next to you hits for 20 grand, good for him. I guess not good for him if he's in the same tournament. but putting that aside, right, and there are different tournament sizes for different people. First of all, let's pick on the big one, the BCBC. There is nothing wrong with two people that can't afford 10 grand each coming together and saying, let's put 5 grand apiece and have a partner entry. And we'll just play this thing together and hopefully agree on handicapping opinions. And now you've made that a $5,000 endeavor instead of 10. You can go all the way to the extreme. Naira Bets has a weekly $250 tournament, I think it is. The strategies that I give are all about getting the requisite multiple of your bankroll. I even get into the details about saying how these multiples might change a little bit depending on the size of the tournament. But it is the exact same strategies that work for all this stuff. So when you see success in one of the smaller Hawthorne tournaments, qualifying for the NHC or the Grade 1 Gamble, believe it or not, it's largely the same theories. It's the same thing applied. Again, depending on whether the multiple that it takes to win the tournament might change.
And I think something that you've brought to my attention, a lot of people's attention in your circle, is to understand what kind of bankroll you have and not go outside of your limits, especially when it comes to contest play. Because if you're going to play in a $2,000 buy-in and you want to win, you do have to be prepared to bet some pretty big dollars. And if you're not comfortable with that, then stick to the Naira 300s or whatever. So just understand your own bankroll. Don't go above and beyond your means, just like any gambling realm. But I think it really comes into play in tournaments, because when, excuse my language, when the shit hits the fan, Matt, and we're at the end of the tournament and you have to make maybe a play for $5,000, that's a hell of a lot of money for a lot of people. And if you're not prepared to make that kind of bet because you need to pay some bills or whatever, then you probably shouldn't be in the tournament in the first place. So I think that's something that is extremely important. And there are people, Matt, that are going to be listening to this that are maybe not huge horse racing fans, but are just bettors in general. So can you just very quickly, Matt, as we end your time here, give an example of what you mean on making a sports bet smarter?
Yeah. And so it's funny, when I wrote this, the first person who read it was my wife. And I asked her, does it stand up on three legs? One for life, one for horses, one for sports. And she said, it's close, but not quite. I think you got to combine the sports and the horses. And so there's no question that the horses get more of my time, but an awful lot of what I talk about with respect to the horses is bankroll management, bet sizing, chasing losses, defining goals, all sorts of mindfulness concepts that have very direct applicability to how you'd manage a bankroll for betting sports. There's also similar concepts between multi-race bets and sports parlays. And so over and over and over throughout this book, I actually go out of my way to call it out to sports bettors and say, pay attention, this is a good spot. So to answer your direct question, one of the big points I make in this book is about really understanding your opinion, whatever that opinion is. And you've got two baseball teams playing each other on a given day. And you think one of these two pitchers is an absolute killer who's going to have an incredible game. Well, look, you could take the lazy option of just going to FanDuel or whatever your sports book is, and you can just bet the team to win at minus 190, or they're probably going to be favored if you love the pitcher that much. Or you can get a little more patient and a little more creative and click on one of those parlay buttons, and you'll be surprised at what kind of correlated things the sports book will allow you to layer into a parlay that is essentially all one bet on the same opinion. So I'm going to pick on Dylan Cease pitching against the Cubs yesterday. I think they were about minus 200. I think it's a complete no-brainer. And by the way, I don't even know the box score, so I could be even wrong. If I'm giving you a losing bet, I apologize. Certainly, I would have had the Padres to win. I would have had the Padres you can also parlay that with them to win the first 5 innings. And certainly, if I think that their starting pitcher's a killer, I'm not too worried about how they're going to be doing after 5 innings. He's also a strikeout monster. And so I'm not going to pick him to throw a crazy 12 strikeouts or something, but a modest 5 or 6 will still add nice percentage points onto your parlay. And by the time this thing is done, you're looking at about a plus 100 bet, having taken no risk whatsoever relative to what your original theory was. And so don't just settle on the minus 190, plus 100. I mean, think about this in horse racing terms. How often do you get 50% profit boosts, right? That just doesn't happen. Although I do try to point out a bunch when I come to daily doubles and overlays and underlays and things like that. But that's what I'm talking about with sports betting. It's the same concept that we talk about through the book, just this idea of having an opinion, understanding your opinion, and making bets, smart bets that directly reflect that opinion.
It's great stuff. And Paul, you and I are obviously a bit biased, but really, I cannot emphasize enough how wonderful this book is. And it's a fun read too, Paul. There's funny stories in there. You're going to laugh. There's some great pictures in there, Paul. It's really well done. Again, hats off to Peter Thomas Forntel as well, who is just so damn talented. New York Times bestseller, who edited the book with Matt. And Matt, for someone that did it for the first time, I just think it's brilliant. And I'm a journalism major. I do have a propensity to write, and I believe I have some talent in that area. What you did is tremendous. It's really impressive. And I hope everyone buys it. Paul, any final thoughts for Matt? And then we're going to be bringing on Jim Miller here in just a few minutes to talk about Hawthorne.
No, I just echo what you say, Howard. I can pretty sure I can say with certainty that I can respect and appreciate Matt's process better than anyone else in the chat as I'm grinding my way out and looking forward to another day at Staples tomorrow in my little hideaway. So no, hats off, Mr. Miller. And I would agree. As I say, I don't know the last book that I finished, to be honest with you. I'm notorious for starting them. So I did finish this one at 7:46 tonight. And it is a very light, it's funny. It has some serious stuff in it, yet it's a light and easy read, which I think is the key to keeping people captured. I think people will get through it pretty quickly.
And Matt, we're going to bring on Jim Miller here in just a second, but you and I are going to Saratoga this summer. Any chance for people that are out east? Tom Espinoza said, wait, I live in California. Am I going to have to fly to somewhere to, how about the people that are out east, maybe in the Saratoga area, chance you'll be signing some books out there in late July?
Definitely, yes. I'll have to work this out. I don't know what kind of book tour I do, if I do seminars or how these things work. I know I have friends at these racetracks that are going to be helpful and supportive. So yeah, to the extent that people would like me out there, I will be running to go out there. That would be great.
It's exciting. Well, let's and again, you guys are welcome to stay on as long as you like, or just for a few minutes, maybe to say hi to our next guest, the director of racing at Hawthorne Racecourse, Mr. Jim Miller. Jim, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, gentlemen. Matt, nice to see you. And I'll tell you, it's been a crazy couple weeks. Everything coming out of the Derby and that for sure. Leading into what's hopefully the start of the turf season here at Hawthorne. But things are going well on our end for sure.
Actually, I should have introduced you a different way. I apologize. Now pitching number 45, Jim Miller. Jim, for people who don't know your background, this just came out on X. I think this was last night. What's going on here?
That's the first time I've climbed the hill in about 18 months. So, yeah, a little bit of pitching, getting back after it. It was a lot of fun. It's very rare that I have the time to get out there every once in a while on the mound, but it was a late game. So joined the crew through 7 innings. It was good to get back out there.
Jim is a former very talented minor league pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers, and there was an article that was out on X as well from back 97, I think. Jim, I'm sure that brings back some warm fuzzy memories. Jim, Matt, there was a request from several fans to have Matt come out and have a book signing at Hawthorne, and I said, I think I know someone who's going to be on the show that might be able to assist in that. The Chicago fans would love to have a chance to have Matt go out there and sign if that's possible. Hate to put you on the spot, but I'm sure something could be worked out.
That's possible for sure. Anything's possible. I mean, the thing about it is as you guys know, Hawthorne's a very just fan-friendly, player-friendly racetrack. So when you have somebody like Matt who has so much knowledge in the game, so much knowledge in the industry, and has been a huge supporter of our contest too, of course we would do anything to help you. So yes, we would love to have you out for sure.
There you go, Matt. Jim, Matt, and sorry, Paul, we're going to let you guys go. Really appreciate it.
I'm going to go to work.
Yep, Paul's going to go to work, and Matt's going to, I don't know, just celebrate some more books being sold. Matt, you can just check out how many books are being sold in real time, or how does that work actually?
It's amazing. You actually can do that. For people, I would say to people who have kids that check their grades with frequency, this is not as rewarding. The number doesn't change that fast. So I would treat this a little bit more like looking at the scale, maybe once a week, something like that.
Well, Jim would never have to, check grades for his kids because they all, I'm sure, have A's. So, worry about that So anyway, Matt and Paul, thanks a lot. We appreciate it. We're going to talk to Jim about Hawthorne. You guys have a great night.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Howard.
Take care,
See you
everybody.
guys.
All right, Jim, we're excited about Matt's book, A Better Way of Thinking. Highly recommend it. I have a gut feeling that he might be bringing you a book on him free of charge when he comes to Hawthorne because, of course, he's that kind of guy. And, well, crap, you deserve it anyway. Not that you need more help on betting, but he really looks at it a different way. I know you've talked to him in person, and it's really about life, too. It's just a fantastic book. I can't recommend it enough. And as I showed everyone, mine came literally just today. So very cool. Looking forward to him signing that. I'll tell you what also is cool, Jim. It appears, cross our fingers, we will have turf racing this weekend because it looks like Mother Nature is going to cooperate. Unfortunately, last weekend it didn't quite work out with the weather, but it does look like it's going to work out. And the first turf races of the year in Chicago should occur this weekend.
And they should occur this weekend. The one thing about it, Howard, we were very cautious with Saturday. We only carded one turf race on Saturday. We were planning to go 2 and 2 each day, but just kind of looking at just the weather we had today more than anything else, there was a potential to possibly be rained off the turf. So we did just card the one on Saturday, but we moved 3 to Sunday. Sunday's a really good card too. But I'll tell you, Saturday came together really well too. So it is. We'll be on the turf Sunday, I would expect for sure. And man, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. We place that Saturday race later in the card just for that reason. So hopefully we can be on the grass Saturday as well.
It's exciting. My picks for Saturday are already up on the Hawthorne website, hawthorneracehorse.com. And during, not during class, I'm a good boy, during some off periods and a bunch of other things, I finished Sunday's card, and that's already written, Jim, and I'll be putting that up on the website after the show. And I could say it's Sunday's card is definitely difficult. Saturday's late pick 4, though, is a real challenge. And again, the field sizes are getting bigger, and there's some really good racing at Hawthorne. Let's jump right into it right now. We're going to be talking about the Saturday late pick 4. It starts in race 5. As you know, Jim, there it is. It's a $4,000 claimer, about $450 Central Standard Time. $10,000 is the purse. We've got a field of 8. The morning line, which you make up, just let everyone know, favorite is the number 3, Play 20. This is an Illinois bred for James Watkins and Julio Felix. Let me go and show our picks on the screen right now. Actually, they're not going to scroll. That's okay. You've got 4, 5, 3, and I'm going a totally different direction. I'm going 8, 6, 5. So we are quite different. In fact, let me go ahead, and I do want to scroll this so it's a little bit smaller there. There it is. Let's talk about the 4. Ant Stella for Castro and Cologne at 9-2. What do you like about this one, Jim?
This is a wildly difficult race. And the reason it's wildly difficult is pace is going to make this race from one aspect or another. If everybody stays in the race, there's going to be so much speed up front that I just think it sets things up for Aunt Stella to just kind of rate and run on late. I thought that start 2 back was a really solid race. The horse didn't even have a ton of pace to run after, but was able to rate close and run on late. And then in that last out, I just think Aunt Stella was probably a little bit too close to the pace early on and then just kind of backed out of it. But we know Play 20's quick. We know Cookin' Roses is quick. And then you throw Ravelli and Opaline in there, another one who's going to be fast. I just think Aunt Stella, more than anything, is going to be forced to have to settle back a little bit early on. And if that's the case and you get a contested pace up front, which I am expecting, I think this is a horse that just kind of sits back, rates, runs on late. And I think this is a horse that you could catch at a little bit of a price.
Do you agree with that time form? They've got the 4 sort of on the inside mid-pack, which based on your opinions would be perfect for this one, right?
Yeah, and for this to happen, for Aunt Stella to win, you need to have Play 20 and Cookin' Roses both in this race because they are the same style of racehorse. Wing it, go as fast as you can for as long as you can. At 5.5 furlongs, they might think that's enough distance, but I'll tell you, 5.5 furlongs might actually be perfect for Aunt Stella. So this is a horse that has run the distance 5 times winless, but hit the board in 3 out of 5 at the distance. And again, I just think you're going to catch a price just based on some of the others that are in this field.
I talked about this in my write-up on the website. Of course, you can also find, for those of you that are involved in the Money Media, I also have write a blog for In the Money Media for Hawthorne that is a full card write up. The Hawthorne website is just the late pick 4. And I agree, this is a tough race, Jim. And I didn't see a lot of closers in this race. And when there's a lot of speed in the race, I make the mistake of trying to find the best closer. The problem with that in this race is I just couldn't find any closers that I liked. And so therefore, in that situation, I go with the speed of the speed. And look, you could be exactly right. Cook and Roses could be up the track in this race. It wouldn't surprise me. But there are two things I like. Number one, I very much like the outside post when there's a lot of speed because Reyes can break, look to his left, and make a decision. And the other thing is if he breaks well, in theory, he can push the button when he wants to. And if he is able to clear at some point, in theory, Jim, that's going to discourage the other speed. So it's a little bit of a tricky angle. I don't love him or her, excuse me, but she is 6-1 morning line. And I just could go a lot of different ways. I even threw the 6 in there as sort of a fuzzy long shot. Palace Magic at 12-1, who has shown the ability to come from behind a little bit. And is dropping down in class. So I thought the 6 Palace Magic, who you might have the mix in your pick 4, I'm not sure. This is a spread race for sure.
Well, I can tell you this, Howard. If I didn't think the last 3 races were almost equally as difficult as this race, I would have potentially hit the all button in this race to get started because this, I think, is the toughest race of the sequence. Here's the thing about Palace Magic, too. 16 starts over the track, 9 times first or second. It's a legitimate racehorse over the racetrack, and you will catch a price there. I thought the 5th race was so tough, though.
Yeah, I think Palace Magic would be my reverse try-key play. Use that one probably only in 2nd and 3rd and see if I can hit a nice trifecta. Let's go to the next race, Jim. Race 6, claiming 5,000. There's a bunch of horses that are coming out of a similar race, which we'll see if we have time to show the end of that race. But it's a field of 8. The morning line favorite, pretty heavy one, is Eisen. Sorry, I knew I was going to mess that up.
Come on,
Zion Deck, I believe I recall.
Eyes on deck.
Eyes on deck, of course. I'm an idiot. Okay. Eyes on deck. I knew I was going to screw that up. 8-5 morning line. Rodriguez, David Cohen. You and I talked about David Cohen, veteran rider, had some big years in New York and other places. He's here to ride on the weekends, I believe you said. There's some good things to like about this one. There's also things I'm a bit hesitant about. And there you go. You're going 1-5-4. I'm going 4-5-8. We're both trying to beat Eyes on Deck. Why don't you talk about the one Palhalco from Miraz and Cologne? Possibly a wire job here, Jim?
That's my thought. That's exactly my thought. There's not a ton of pace in this race, Howard, unlike the last race. And Palhalco ran an improved race in that last out. And Antonio Miraz had a really good year last year. He got off to a slow start this meet, but now we're starting to see kind of that 2nd and 3rd start out of horses. They're picking it up and showing a little bit more. And Palhalco was one of those that ran much better that 2nd out, went out there, showed speed, and actually probably went faster than they needed to in that race, going out there 47 and change, 112-3, and still hung around to finish 3rd in that spot. But I didn't think it was a bad effort. You get Cologne back on here. And the thing about Palhalco, he's only made 8 lifetime starts, and he has a win and a 3rd. The thing that scares me about Eyes on Deck, he's made 26 lifetime starts. And although he has 12 times 2nd or 3rd, just that one victory, he just seems to find ways to not win in the end. And you kind of have to include him on your ticket. But if you look at this race, I mean, Palhalco was kind of pushed the whole way around. Minnesota Moon was the other one that hung around there late. But think about this. Palhalco set the pace. Minnesota Moon passed him. And Palhalco came back on this horse in the lane. So I thought this was a pretty game effort out of a horse that I think should really improve in this spot too.
Here's Hawaiian, the number 4, who I like, is in this race. And here's Eyes on Deck, who's also in this race. So these 4 horses are going to finish 2, 3, 4, 5, are coming back. And you're right. The Minnesota riding about Halco just, they just battled way too hard. And they both tired. I don't see that happening here. I see a lot less speed in the race. I agree with you. And that's why I'm going to go with the number 4, which, you know, based on the replay, people are like, Howard, why do you like Hawaiian Hideaway, who was the one in that replay? I like the race 2 back. I know it was a very cheap race, but if they decide those tactics, I think they have a better shot to win. I didn't like what Felix did last time. The horse broke a little slow and then was sort of rushed up along the inside. Just never really looked comfortable. This is not my strongest pick here, Jim, but maybe the 1 and 2 are like, okay, we're not going to battle each other this time. And somehow Julio gets to the front. And like we said, I mean, eyes on deck, sure. I mean, should be the favorite, but 1 for 26. I'm sorry. I just can't do it.
Yeah, I can't either. I mean, again, you probably have you may have to include the horse, but I think you're right about Hawaiian Hideaway. This is the horse that is probably the one that's best equipped just based off the recent races. And Terry Young's off to a great start on the meet. I think this is a horse that, again, like you said, even you may want to show a little bit more speed. I think Minnesota Moon's going to kind of take out of it in here just because of how things kind of unfolded late in the lane in that last out. I could see Pelhaco and maybe even Hawaiian Hideaway kind of going 1-2 around, and they could even go 1-2 the whole way around in there.
I had a Churchill flashback with Minnesota Ready. Sorry, wrong Lothenbach, wrong Minnesota horses. Speaking of which, let me ask you a question, Jim.
Yep.
This is important for people that are betting Hawthorne. I am very familiar with Canterbury Park as well. Yep. Great people up there. I know you know some of those well. It looks like there's some horses that have been off that might be prepping for Canterbury. Do you expect some of the horses right now at Hawthorne, whether they're Minnesota bred or not, to be actually moving up to Canterbury? And this might just be a prep for that. Do you have any intel on that? Because I did notice in the past performances this weekend, there were quite a few Minnesota bred horses running off the layoff.
Yeah, and the two barns that you really have to look to are Joel Burt and Gary Scherer. Those are guys that both have Minnesota bred race horses. Joel Burt in the Lothenbach Dispersal Stable went back in and got, I'd say, 11 or 12 of those horses back. So he had to purchase them back. So he picked out the ones that he really wanted, that he was trained in before. So that's one of the things that you really kind of have to keep an eye on, is those Minnesota breds that Burnt got back. And what's going to happen is both these guys said, we're going to split our stables. The Oak horses are going to stay at Hawthorne. The Minnesota bred horses are going to go to Canterbury Park. So that way they kind of have shots to win races at both of those locations. But yeah, you're right. You will see some of those heading that way. Both those guys, though, it's interesting, Howard, because, I mean, you can call it a prep, but they both enter to win. They're not worried about trying to save conditions or anything along those lines either. They're out there wanting to go out and win those races. So when you do see those Minnesota bred racehorses, because Burnt's got a couple of them in Sunday in a 25 non-3 claimer as well. And those horses have big shots too.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we like seeing the stock there. We've got hundreds of people watching right now, Jim. We can't thank everyone enough for sticking around for our third segment here tonight with Director of Racing Jim Miller as we talk about the late pick for this Saturday. Let's go to the third leg. These are the kind of races I like, and let's cross our fingers. Cross our fingers. This is the first turf race of the season at Hawthorne. What a beautiful turf course, by the way. For you bettors out there that are not familiar with Hawthorne Race Course, the maintenance crew, superintendents, to do a great job with its lush. The turns are sharp, but not too sharp. It's a very long stretch. It's very fair. It's a fantastic turf course. Highly recommend people play turf racing. This one is not a long race. This is 5 furlongs for maiden special weights. It's a real puzzle. You got to look at pedigrees. Real nice purse too, Jim. $32,000 is the purse. It's a big field right now of 12 if it holds together with the soft morning line favorite. A horse that some people might say, didn't I see this horse entered sometime a few weeks back? Yes, you did. Ravenstown for River Valley. David Cohen, 7-2, was entered in the Illinois Derby, was just more of a filler, and they decided to go to a more realistic spot here. Here's our picks right now, Jim, on the screen. Sorry, I forgot to switch to a scroll. Let me switch that very quickly and bring it up on the screen. Here we go. Jim is going 8, 10, 7. I'm going 10, 3, 1. Jim, this is a long shot play of the day for me. And speaking of long shots, you have a long shot as well, very aptly named for a school teacher. The number 8 midterm for Patty Miller and it's Olaf Hernandez at 10-1. What do you like about midterm in this main specialty?
The one thing that everybody always seems to think, especially in turf sprints, is speed always wins these races. And that's really not necessarily the case, because so many horses wing it for the front. And so often you'll see a horse kind of coming from out of it and run on late. But the races this horse ran at Hawthorne even though they were on the main track, they were both pretty solid efforts. The horse hung in there the whole way around. Patty Miller's one who actually does even a little bit better on the grass. And what I like about Midterm is you kind of got that last race, and the horse hung around in there. The winner of that race, Moonlight Road, is the favorite in an allowance race this weekend. Ravenstown's the horse who's going to go favorite in here. And Midterm really wasn't too far behind Ravenstown in the end in that last out. And that was a shorter field. That was a race where things probably didn't set up nearly as much as would have been expected for a race like this. But I think there's just going to be so much pace in this race. And I do think a horse like Midterm should be able to come running at him late. And even as you see in this spot, this was a horse that was kind of lugging in a little bit in the lane. So a little bit green, still trying to figure things out. Switch leads real late in here. But on that turf course, I just tend to wonder if the horse is going to take to the grass. And because of some of the other connections in this race too, this is a horse that I think will be overlooked. And I think you're going to get every bit of that 10-1.
I like it. Silver Tree on the dam side was a big-time turfer. Do I remember that correctly?
Yep.
Let me look at the breeding. Right? Silver Tree. Let me. I'm sorry. I didn't. Where's Silver? Okay. Dam's not in here. Anyway, why is Silver Tree not in there? I don't know. Anyway, Silver Tree was a talented. It's not gonna be in there. Sorry, a talented turf horse.
Yes.
Jim, do me a favor. Can we not say the word lug in because I'm having Derby flashbacks and just. Oof. Anyway, we don't want to talk about lugging in too much.
Hey, let me ask you this. Can I ask you a real quick question about the race?
Go ahead.
And the only thing I want to ask you is, I'm convinced if those two horses just ran straight, that they would have finished 1-2, one way or the other. They would have finished 1-2 if they avoid the contact for sure, and probably I would say even a half length clear of Mystic Dan if they had just run straight in the lane.
Yeah, we talked about a lot on the show on Monday, and I understand I'm biased based on what they've done in terms of before. I went going in, thinking Sierra Leone was the best closer. If they don't bump into each other and they just run their race, to me, and I think you pretty much said it and agree, Sierra Leone beats Forever Young, I'll say by a half a length to a length. And I think Forever Young is a half a length to a length clear of Mystic Dan. But it didn't happen that way. But yes, I do agree with you. But I'm having a block now on what actually happened. Anyway, can we go back to the Hawthorne race?
Yes, let's go.
Ravenstown has enough turf breeding. He's fast. He's good. He's got the outside. I don't mind that, Jim, because again, you can break and see what's going on. Yep. I like Ravenstown. Here's my long shot of the day, though, Jim. I want to talk about this horse a little bit. Yep. Red Rizzler. Now, people look at this horse, they're like, Howard, what are you talking about? Was it only maiden 30 at Oaklawn, finished 6 by 13? Okay, a few things. First of all, horse didn't break great, number one. Number two, has worked real well since, I'm assuming in blinkers. Number three, gets the blinkers. And you know what, Jim? Ultimate Class, the dam, this was a nice turf sprinter. This horse won $283,000. Did a lot of it on turf sprinting and a half to Bad Beat Brian, who was a very nice turfer who won $745,000. So if this horse runs to pedigree, at least on the dam side, I think this one is very interesting. If he breaks well, he's going to have an inside post. He's going to be a big price. I know Cody Rosine a little bit. Again, another Canterbury guy. Texas Red, okay, the males say maybe not a lot of turf. How much turf do you really need in a 5 furlong race, Jim? This is the one that I'm very interested to use, the number 3, Red Rizzler. Any quick thoughts on this one?
Quick thoughts on Cody Rosine. He is coming locked and loaded from Oaklawn Park. And he said he's bringing 20 horses in. They're ready to go. We know the competition that there was at Oaklawn Park. He's a guy, and again, this weekend, I mean, like I said, locked and loaded. He has live horses left and right entered all weekend long. I know I've picked him numerous times. So this horse wouldn't shock me by any means. And again, Howard, you're going to get a price because you have a couple Ravellis and you have a Chris Block and you have some others in here. You're going to catch some prices on some of these horses.
Absolutely. Let's get to the last race, Jim, of the day, and just doesn't get any easier. So let's go and show our picks. Jim is going 9-8-3. I'm going 4-1-3, and I believe you told me, and thank you for this, that there's a scratch you already know about with the number 11. Is that correct?
Yeah, DeArcher's coming out. They found a spot that was a little bit better for them on Sunday. So DeArcher comes out of this race on the outside. So it'll be a 10-horse field here. But this is a wildly tough race, too. As you can tell from our selections in here, Howard, it's very tough.
It's very tough, and DeArcher, the Florida bred, is out, like you said, 9-2. We are going very different ways. You know what I found interesting, Jim, is in your write-up, because I do my research and I read your write-up, you didn't think there was a lot of speed in this race. Now,
Right.
I didn't know DeArcher was out, but even so, I still think there is enough speed. So it's interesting to see what happens, because if the speed doesn't develop, your horse, number 9, Hurts So Bad, has a big shot. If the speed does develop, I feel like the number 4 that I have, Christmas Present, at 5-1, has a big shot. So we'll see what happens. Let's talk about Hurts So Bad, your top choice in this race.
8-1 in the morning line. This is a horse that was clean 3 starts back. And the thing I like about Hurts So Bad is that last out, and you look at the race 2 back, they were chasing a really fast pace, 21-4, 45-3, and we're chasing. And then all of a sudden, last out, Hurts So Bad went even faster to the half. Look at that. For 4,000 claimers, 44-4, and you went back and checked that, but that was the time to the half. And this horse was still only a half length out of it mid-stretch before tiring late. Well, you look at this spot here, I don't think they're going to have to go nearly as quickly early on. Pinballer, probably the horse that chases just to the inside of Hurts So Bad. But Howard, I personally thought there was a potential for these two to run 1-2, maybe even in this spot. And if Hurts So Bad can clear, the horse is good at the distance, good over the racetrack, and I think there is the potential for them to possibly go out there and go 1-2 around. But I think Hurts So Bad is the fastest to the front.
I'm not expecting you to poo-poo Craig Milkowski and the wonderful people at Timeform, but how do you feel about what you see here, Jim? And again, though, the 11 is out of the race, but they still project a fast pace probably anyway, with the 6 and 8 maybe pressing Hurts So Bad. Do you think it'll be honest and you just think Hurts So Bad is going to clear and win anyway? Or do you feel like this might be a bit, I want to say inaccurate, but maybe just a different opinion?
No, Craig's really good. So I'm never going to say it's inaccurate. I can tell you this, Pinballer, I think, is the one that will be the closest to the pace. Alianabi, I don't think, is the same type of horse. You look at the 2 races for Alianabi where this horse was forwardly placed, those were opening quarters in 23 and change. Hurts So Bad can go 5 lengths faster early on. So that's the thing. I think Alianabi is probably actually settling in that second flight, because if they want any shot to win, if they're up on that pace, they're going to suck right out of it. So I think they're going to rate back. Pinballer does have the potential and does have some back class to kind of push things forward, but those are the only 2 that I really do think are going to go out there. But I just think Hurts So Bad could be a little bit faster to the front.
I'm going to use Hurts So Bad in my picks, underneath, but I'm hoping the holidays come a little bit early here as we approach the summer with Christmas Present. I love turnbacks. This is a turnback. And I thought this horse improved going 6. I don't think it's a 2-turn horse. I know he's run 2 turns for Brian Cook and Julio. I like the jockey change, by the way, also. I hope he's not too far back. And, again, it's a little bit of a soft pick, but if you don't pick 1 or 2 horses in this race, you got to go 7, 8 deep, and you'll see by our pick 4 my thinking here. I just had to take a stand somewhere, and I decided to do it in this race. But frankly, without a ton of confidence, I just figured at some point I'm going to have to take a stand, and I did it here. Let's show our pick 4 tickets. Then we have an important question at the bottom of the screen that, Jim, I'd like you to address, if you may, in just a minute here. Your pick 4 on Saturday, 3-4-5 with 1-4-5 with 8-10 with 3-8-9, $27. Quick thoughts on your construction here. Pun intended, Jim, based on the question I'm about to ask you after this.
First thought, you're probably, I try to keep things reasonable for my pick 4 tickets, Howard. I think if you really wanted to hit this, you would almost have to go all in the first leg and probably 6 deep in the last leg, but that's just not affordable for the most players here. So I'm going with my most logical selections for each to possibly cash a big ticket. I feel pretty confident getting out of that first leg. I feel pretty confident getting out of that second leg. I can tell you that turf race is so tough. The finale is so tough there too. But what I always like to do when I construct a ticket like this, I like to give you a horse that can show some speed. So you're going to be in the race. If it's a day where speed is holding well, then I like to give you a horse that may have kind of right setup as well too. So that's kind of the way I constructed the ticket. Tried to keep it affordable as well. I could probably play $108 ticket on this and have the same confidence as I would for 27. I just think that's how tough the sequence is.
It is tough. Apologize to everyone. Jim's skipping a little bit with the internet.
I'm sorry.
Me in the show very soon. That's all right. My late pick 4 is a $30 play. I'm going 1, 3, 5, 6, 8 with 4, 5, 8 with 1, 3, 4, 10. I didn't mention the 4 in the turf race, who's an interesting first-time starter with some pedigree. And then I'm just going to single Christmas present. Again, I could play a bigger ticket. I don't want to give everyone a bigger ticket. So I'm just going to take a stab. And you know what? If I am alive to last race, I have a chance to back up and me use the 4 underneath, maybe in exactas or tries or a little bit of hedging if I choose. Let's just end the show here with a very quick and important question, because it's on the minds of a lot of people right now, I'm sure, especially Chicago area players, from Mark Bogaz, who's a big fan of the show, and Chicagoan. Any quick construction updates, Jim? Anything you're willing to say publicly right now at Hawthorne?
And the main thing that you've seen, we started to make some little bit of changes here and there, so you can see it's a little bit more fan friendly to be able to go out there and see the races, see the horses in the stretch, see the horses coming out of the paddock, open things up a little bit more. So those are all positive signs in the right direction. So at least I can kind of say we're moving things towards the right direction. So hopefully, Mark, that helps you out a little bit without helping you out too much there, but at least for what I can offer up for you.
Yeah, Mark, I'm not going to speak for Jim, but there's things they have to be careful, to say. And when the time is right, things will be mentioned, on air, many locales, and you'll find out what's going on. But of course, Hawthorne has some big plans in the future they hope to bring to bear for everyone. Jim, any final thoughts, contests, anything else coming up as we wrap up the show at Hawthorne? State races.
We always have contests, so you definitely want to keep that in mind. But we have contests coming up here for NHC qualifiers. Check out the website, hawthorneracecourse.com, for that. We're starting to plan, Howard, for the Horse Players Invitational. So yes, we're hoping that you're going to be a part of that as well. But that's something that we stream. Yes. Do I know the date?
Yeah.
So
can you say it?
No, because they were finalizing it today. So I just want to make sure once they get it finalized today. We have a very good idea.
I hope I'm going to be in town.
He'll be in town, I respect. I would hope so. But anyway, we're going to televise that again. We're going to live stream it on YouTube. We'll make sure you're in town. I can tell you this: you'll be on summer break, so hopefully you will be in town for that. But they were just finalizing the date, looking at the schedule, and then stakes are starting up too. So state bred stakes coming up, turf and dirt. Then we do have some nice turf sprint open stakes that are going to come up when we get into July as well.
Awesome. We'll talk after the show for 2 seconds. You can let me know those dates. Jim, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. And the Sunday card, everyone, outstanding. You really need to pay attention to Hawthorne Racecourse this weekend. For my wonderful co-host, Paul Halloran, good friend, Matt Miller, again, A Better Way of Thinking, BETTOR, a betterwayofthinking.com. Please check out his book and look into buying it because it is excellent. There it is right there. And another good Miller friend, director of racing at Hawthorne Racecourse, Jim Miller. This has been your host, Howard Kravitz, episode 350 of Picks and Ponies. Crush your bets in New York and especially Chicago's hometown track, Hawthorne Racecourse. Take care, everyone. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.